Hi, this is Terry Mante, and I have a question for you. Do you think that we need a revolution in politics in Africa? I think we do. I think African politics needs a revolution, and that is what I want to talk about. But the kind of revolution I'm talking about is not just any kind of ad hoc revolution. I'm talking about a fundamental revolution in our cultural paradigm that will have an impact on how we engage politicians and political actors and even governance as a whole.
Since you love to read, you will be free forever.
Terry Mante is a great person to get content and deep revelation with both biblical insight and socio-economic thought.
Terry is someone who is very dedicated and committed.
Terry is an incisive author.
Nobody becomes successful by using their weaknesses, and we have to be conscious about using our strengths to mitigate the impact of our weaknesses on our lives. Leadership is a sense, it's a certain mindset, it's a certain understanding, a certain paradigm that you have, which translates into influence, into making an impact, into having a positive impact on the lives of other people.
Terry is a terrific writer.
Terry's books are not only relevant for the development of potential and capacity, they are also essential for the refinement of ethics and character.
Everybody needs a Terry Mante book. Get them from reputable online stores and libraries. Connect with us by phone, email, or social media.
The idea of a cultural revolution in African politics is a matter I have covered or discussed in my book, When God Lost an Election, the political market of demand and supply. And among many things, one of the things I talk about is the need for us in Africa to take our politics through a cultural revolution. One of the things that we have to settle in our minds as citizens of Africa is that the contemporary African political leader is not the same as a chief. You know, in pre-colonial times, African traditional leaders, who we normally call chiefs, used to govern our societies and our countries, and they were very powerful people. They had absolute power in their territories. They were people who had to be obeyed. In fact, in some countries or in some cultures, some of these people were deified. So it meant that they were owners of their territories. That means they had the sovereignty resided in them. It also meant that they were born into special lineages. So you had to be born into a special family to become a chief. So those people were seen to be very special. They were seen to, some of them were seen to possess supernatural powers and considered the bridge between the physical realm and the spiritual realm. Leaders were revered. They were presumed to be always right. For many of us in Africa, our contemporary political arrangements are byproducts of our encounter with European colonial masters. We embraced the form of governance without reprogramming our minds and reforming our perspective about leaders and leadership. We have dealt with our political leaders the same way our ancestors used to relate to chiefs in ancient times. Let's go back to Europe. If you look far back into their history, we realize that most of the countries there in Europe had monarchical structures in place, not different from the chieftaincy institution we used to have. These monarchs were absolute rulers, just like our chiefs were. They made laws, adjudicated cases, and controlled patronage. So think of countries like France, Norway, Netherlands, England, Sweden, Greece, Denmark, Spain, Belgium, and the rest of Europe, all of them used to be monarchies. As they became enlightened, power moved from these monarchs to the people. Kingdoms became republics. Some of these transitions were engineered through violent protests, while others took place through gradual adjustments of the legal framework. Over time, European citizens realized that their personal success and that of their country was the collective responsibility of each citizen, and not just that of a monarch and their council, not just that of a monarch and their council of elders. They saw themselves as stakeholders in the affairs of their countries, and they began to assert themselves. Even in European countries such as England, Sweden, Spain, Netherlands, Norway, and other places where the monarchy is still in place, we realize that these monarchs have become mere ceremonial heads with no real executive authority. The people who have executive authority are usually those who are elected by the people, and they serve at the pleasure of the people. We realize that in real terms, ultimately, sovereignty or the power to govern belongs to the people, and the people are the bosses of the leaders.
Since you love to read, you will be free forever.
Terry Mante is a great person to get content and deep revelation with both biblical insight and socio-economic thought.
Terry is someone who is very dedicated and committed.
Terry is an incisive author.
Nobody becomes successful by using their weaknesses, and we have to be conscious about using our strengths to mitigate the impact of our weaknesses on our lives. Leadership is a sense, it's a certain mindset, it's a certain understanding, a certain paradigm that you have, which translates into influence, into making an impact, into having a positive impact on the lives of other people.
Terry is a terrific writer.
Terry's books are not only relevant for the development of potential and capacity, they are also essential for the refinement of ethics and character.
Everybody needs a Terry Mante book. Get them from reputable online stores and libraries. Connect with us by phone, email, or social media.
In many African states, leaders are seen as elders. We kowtow to them, sometimes even when they are wrong. We feel it is a sign of disrespect to call out the misdeeds of our leaders. There are still some countries on the continent where they have laws which criminalize any criticism of the governing group, of the group that is in government. And sometimes when you speak or when you have an opinion about something that is not in favor of government, you get harassed for speaking your mind, as if what you are doing is something that is an abomination. But the point is that whenever we see our elected representatives, we often prefer that we have to bow to them. Sometimes the leaders call for it, or sometimes we feel that we have to bow to them, because that is how our culture has programmed us to see people who are in positions of authority. But in the democratic system, I believe that instead of bowing to leaders when we see them, we must rather demand accountability from them. Instead of constantly seeking for favors from our leaders, we have to really charge them to work for the benefit of everybody, of the country and of our continent. And we are using our taxes to pay them. They are working for us. We pay them with our taxes. And so all the things they do, everything they do, the roads, the airports, they build, the railway lines they construct, the schools, everything they do it with our money. And when they do any of these things, it is not a favor that they are doing for us. They are just simply doing a job that we have assigned them to do, and we pay them for it. That is the kind of revolution I'm talking about, that when we see our leaders, we have to respect them, all right, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to bow to them, because they work for us. They are our servants. Let me use this analogy in the corporate work environment. Everybody who works in a firm, in an organization, who is an employee, knows that they have to meet targets that are set for them. So when they do what they are supposed to do, they don't see it as doing their superiors or the shareholders of the business a favor. It's not a favor. They are only fulfilling an obligation that they have. They do their work, and then they also get rewarded for what they do. And that is why when employees go astray, sometimes they are rebuked, they are sanctioned for going astray. Because everything they do must be in accordance with the direction that is determined by the shareholders and the board of the company. So for all of us in Africa, it is time for us to begin to revise our paradigm. We have to revise our paradigm. While it is in order to show respect to people and to those in leadership, we must assume our rightful place as shareholders of our commonwealth. The directors and managers, who I call the leaders, they are our directors and managers. The people we put in place, they report to us, not the other way around. We don't report to them, they report to us. We should be able to rebuke them when they go astray. We must have systems for making recommendations and giving directives. Let us never forget that the president is not a king. The member of parliament is not a chief. The city mayor is not a chief. The minister of state is not a chief. They are our servants, and we are not subjects. We are citizens. It has been my pleasure coming your way today. Before I go, I want to recommend my latest book, When God Lost an Election: The Political Market of Demand and Supply. I believe that this is a book that every African electorate must read. And if we embrace the ideas and the concepts, or if we interrogate the ideas and the concepts in the book, it's going to enhance our capacity to ensure that our governments across the continent work in our interest, in the collective interest of the people of Africa. Copies are available on reputable online bookstores across the world, and you may also send us a message directly via the number on the screen on WhatsApp or SMS. Thank you very much. I'm Terry Mante.
Once you love to read, you will be free forever.
Terry Mante is a great person to get content and deep revelation with both biblical insight and socio-economic thought.
Terry is someone who is very dedicated and committed.
Terry is an incisive author.
Nobody becomes successful by using their weaknesses, and we have to be conscious about using our strengths to mitigate the impact of our weaknesses on our lives. Leadership is a sense, it's a certain mindset, it's a certain understanding, a certain paradigm that you have, which translates into influence, into making an impact, into having a positive impact on the lives of other people.
Terry is a terrific writer.
Terry's books are not only relevant for the development of potential and capacity, they are also essential for the refinement of ethics and character.
Everybody needs a Terry Mante book. Get them from reputable online stores and libraries. Connect with us by phone, email, or social media.